We're joined by Anthony Chan. He's a former chief economist at the investment firm JPMorgan. He's also worked for the U.S. Central Bank. Anthony, so how much of an economic strain is this going to put on China and also on all these Western companies that do business there?
I think there's no question that it's going to put some strain. Most of the strain will be in the first calendar quarter. I estimate somewhere between 1 and 1.5% negative impact. And of course, that will depend also on how long these factories continue to remain shut, which will impact the global supply chains, not only in the United States, but in many other countries out there. Keep in mind that right now, we have almost 70% of China's GDP basically shut down. And the longer that takes, the longer the implications. We are very lucky that the spring weather is around the corner, and generally that will lift the threat and certainly the severity of this. But the high level of contagion from this virus certainly would argue for keeping things shut down a little bit longer. There is good news, and that is that it's not as deadly as other coronaviruses that have been experienced, but that high level of contagion does really tell us that there is significant downward pressure on economic growth, at least certainly in the first quarter, and some of it will undoubtedly spill into the second quarter.
And certainly the airline industry also taking a bid with so many of these airlines canceling their trips to China.
Yeah, there's no question that whenever these things occur, the airlines really take it right in the chin up front. Many people that I have met have told me that they get a little bit nervous when they see people in the airports, even in the United States, walking around with masks and things like that. But to the extent that it remains well contained, and I think China is doing a good job at doing the best that they can to contain the virus. The U.S. and other countries are following suit. So I think it is an issue, but I don't think it's an issue that's going to last all year. Hopefully, in the first quarter, we'll see the peak of it, and then things will start to get a little bit better. And that's great for China, great for the United States, and great for the world. But we also have to remember that even when we had SARS, it had a negative impact on global economic growth of about 0.2% or so. And now that China is almost 4 times greater as a GDP, as a share of world GDP, you have to expect that the potential of that number to go much, much higher is there.
And what about the impact on world financial markets? I mean, if you're an investor, should you be a little worried right now?
I think you have to be somewhat cautious, but the financial markets are fickle, and as you probably are well aware, over the last couple of days we've been hearing a lot of stories, some verified, some not so verified, that we're getting closer towards finding some sort of a vaccine or some sort of an antidote to the novel coronavirus. So to the extent that those news reports continue to multiply, and maybe some of them are to some extent true, and if China becomes a little bit more creative and allows some of those experimental techniques or cures or drugs to be experimented quicker in China, that may be a little bit risky, but to the extent that they get lucky, that may mean that the virus is contained a lot quicker than most of the experts are thinking, because as you probably know, in the United States, we generally like to wait a little bit longer before we start the human-to-human trials. If China starts earlier than the U.S., then obviously there's risk that that the drug is not effective, but if it works, I certainly wish China the best in this situation.
I think a lot of people do. All right, we'll leave it there. Anthony Chan, thank you.